Hi, this is Don of Don's Old Garage, and today I'm going to give you a little shot of I'm back working on the 240Z today. As I mentioned before, switch back and forth on projects based on what needs to be done. If this one needs a part, I can't get the part or whatever. What I'm working on the 240 is I and my son restored this 20 years ago, and we did a pretty elaborate job. And the paint job I put it on at the time was a special epoxy paint that was used on airplanes at the time. It was a very hard paint. They're very strong and long lasting. And I think I showed you little pictures before of how good the shine is on this car after 20 years. Well, also after 20 years, there's little things that happen. And so last year I decided it was time to start fooling around with the paint. Most of the time what I do with my car every year is I take it out, I drive it, I tune it, I make sure it's good, I clean it all up and do that. So I've taken care of this car every single year I've owned it since I bought it in 1972. And I think I mentioned to you before, this car is very special to me because this is the car that I was driving when I met my lifelong love, my wife, Claudia. So anyway, I put love into this car just because it's very symbolic of all the love I've had through my life. So what I'm going to do is start doing some sanding and ready for refinishing. I'll give you an idea. I'm going to turn the camera around this way a little bit, make sure you can see it. Hopefully, yeah. If you look at the edge of the hood here, you can see where I've been working on here. I sanded off and put some primer because just opening and closing the hood, it's kind of worn out the edge of the paint, and I need to do that. Actually, if you see underneath the hood, it doesn't look all that good. The underneath side of this hood is the only original paint of 1972 that's left on this car. And if you see the condition of this that's why 20 years ago my son and I decided to start to restore the car. So anyway, it's touch up, polish, little things, bring it back to that really nice place where I can go out and drive it and have people look at it, and I'm very proud of this car. So let's continue with the work. What I'm going to start out a little more close up of, here's this edge of the hood where I told you, it gets chipped and stuff for work. I'm using a heavy Scotch-Brite pad, and I'm just going to show you what I'm going to start doing. I've already put, once I scraped it out, I put some primer on it. I'm going to come back now and use this pad to really try to blend and soften out the variation between the two paints. Also, one of the things that happens is when the paint rolls over the edge, like this, when it rolls over the edge, sometimes right here adhesion can be a problem. And I think you can see this spot. Let me look at the camera. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it. There's a little chip out of here. In fact, there's a chip out of the top of the hood part. So I'm going to have to make a transition of paint in here to blend this in with that. And that's just, again, one of those little things that happens over time when you use a car, when it's part of your life. You drive it, you fix it up, you take care of it, and you just go ahead and work at it. So I'm just going to sand on some of this a little bit, and I'll speed this up because I'll bore you to death if you watch me sand this whole thing forever, and I want to do that, so I'll speed it up as I'm doing some of this work. So I'm going to be also working on this surface, that is the surface that closes down inside the car, when the hood's closed, and then the very edge of where the paint rolls over to this edge. So I'm going to be working on smoothing and blending that in, so when I touch up this edge, the idea is when I'm done, you won't be able to tell that I've made this patch, or maybe you will if you look really close, but still it'll look really nice, as I get this done. The other thing I'm going to be doing is using the Scotch pad on the underside of the hood. And if I start rubbing on a little bit of this right now to give you the idea, you can see before too long I can start cutting through all the grime that is built up underneath the hood over the years just from the engine running. You know, just dust in the engine running, a little, you know, oil and those kinds of things. And, you know, so this is kind of part of the prep that you go through to preparing the surface. And you can use wet dry sandpaper, and I will use some of that later, but I find at this beginning stage, this Scotch-Brite really cuts through all this stuff much quicker and makes the prep job a lot easier as you're working it. Now there's places like this where, because of the heat and the other things, maybe some oil or gasoline came up over the years and completely got rid of the paint, you know, completely worn. So I'll have to do a little sanding here with sandpaper to try to blend this back in, so when I prime it, this will disappear. So you can see a lot of the work that I'll have to be doing in here. So again, I'm not going to make you watch the hours and hours I'm going to spend doing this, but I'll come back to you again when I get to the next process, or maybe when I come back to touch up the paint and show you what it looks as I go through that part of the process. So anyway, I'm going to continue working. Okay, this is another section I'm going to be working on, and I'll kind of show you what I'm going to be doing. This also gives you an idea of some of the parts you have to do. This is the hood that opens up, you know, and I talked about these little secondary hoods that are on either side of the car. This one happens to be the hood that gives you access to where the brake fluid is and doing the brake. On the other side, it gives you access to where the battery is so you can work on the battery. Now, you can see this is a totally different color than this. This right now is in red primer. I'm going to pull this up so you can see this is a piece I've already been working on. You know, I've done several sandings on it. I blended it out. I put primer on it here. See, it's coming along pretty good. Next, I'm going to put a layer, after a light sanding, a layer of gray primer to see if it looks really good. Now, if you look right, I don't know if you can see that, but see, there's a little spot right there where one of those little chips still kind of shows, even though I've worked on it. So I'll probably work on that edge a little bit more. I think there was one over here. You may not even be able to see it on the camera, but I'll tell you I can see it. And those are areas that I'll continue work on before the paint and the final paint color. So this piece is going to get the final paint color that I'm going to use to touch up the car with. And then when I get this little piece in, I'm going to set it back in here, and then I'm going to compare the colors to see how much I like it. I think it's going to be very close, and I think I'm going to be pleased with it, but you've got to also double check. In the meantime, if I zoom this in a little bit, let me come in closer, move this over a little bit, you can see the kind of thing that happened. When I painted it before, the way we taped it off and stuff, down in here I had painted all the engine compartment first before I painted the outside of the car. But when I painted the outside of the car, somehow we didn't tape all this off well enough. So what happened, it got lots of overspray with primer and other kinds of things. And to tell you the truth, it looks pretty ratty. So this is one of the areas all in through here I'm working on and finishing down in here, because like say when this comes closed, I talked to you about how I want to finish the rounded edge here where the paint rounds around to the edge, because when this is closed, see right here we have two rounded edges that meet that make this nice seam. Well, if there's a whole bunch of junk down here that you can see, you get the feeling that it's not a very nice job. So that's one of the things also I'm working on, to try to make that little detail. Maybe it's too much, maybe it's not. What I do, and I think I talked to you in one of the other videos, at this point, I'm not restoring this car, I'm renovating it. I'm renovating it from the last reservation and 20 years of driving and using it. So you can see I've got part of this cleaned up, ready for primer. I'll go come in, tape this off, prime this for the Kirsch color. I always like to use red primer first, and then because I can see things and sand things off, and then I put gray primer in, and with the gray I can really see details I need to maybe work on and work with. Got to replace this rubber, obviously. It's kind of dead there, but you know, that's just the other things you find when you're working. So anyway, again, thanks for kind of watching what I'm doing and where I'm going. I'll come back to you again in my Don's Old Garage when I've made a little progress, and I can show you what's happened. So thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed before, please push the subscribe button. Also right next to it, there's a little red button that you can push, and all it does, it means the next time I put a video on, your computer will pop up and say, hey, Don's got a new video, you want to look at it? You can look at it or not, it's up to you, but at least it lets you know. And the other thing, it really, really helps me on my YouTube channel, because the more people that subscribe, the more people that click the red bell, the more people that make a comment, really helps YouTube say, oh, maybe this guy's doing something important some other people want to watch. And then what they can do with their algorithms, it will throw what I'm out doing just randomly to other people that might be interested. And eventually maybe I will pick up more subscribers. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. Those of you that have subscribed before, thank you so much. I'm up to 45 subscribers already, which I think it was great. Thank you so much. And I will see you soon. Take care.